Hi, I'm Pat Page. I'm a finance and management educator at East Greenwich Public Schools. And I'm also president of Rhode Island Jumpstart, which is the state coalition of a national organization that's a consortium of educators and leaders in the civic social service space. And our focus is on developing financial capability in the K through 12 and under-resourced populations. And this work has started a real groundswell in Rhode Island. So I'm happy to be in the space. So 100% of our students, regardless of where their path takes them after high school, are making significant financial decisions, whether it's about transportation, housing, career, or college, and in most cases, long before they even graduate. And I think we have kind of reaped the negative benefits of not investing in their financial education, just in terms of what we're seeing as far as some of the negative outcomes with credit card debt, student loan debt. And I think we can definitely do better, particularly by our Rhode Island students. So I think that definitely those foundational skills of budgeting and then understanding the power of compounding, right? So why it's so important to consider investing, even a small amount versus going into saving, and the fact that they've got time on their side, and showing students kind of the modeling of what can happen if you systematically set aside even $50 a month, and how that can grow over time is so impactful. I think it was really interesting. I had an opportunity last week as part of a state-run career technical service organization competition to poll about a dozen Rhode Island schools. So these were from different districts. And I had asked the students specifically, if you've had access to a personal finance class, what has been the most impactful for you and the most relevant? And it was interesting to hear them say that budgeting was one of them, and actually doing some tangible budget activities and having the opportunity to file taxes. So I thought that was very reaffirming with some of the work that's going on in some of our districts. And it was also really eye-opening for some of the students who didn't have that kind of a financial education experience or didn't have access at all, even starting at age 5. We have kindergartners, using digital cash as part of their lunchroom transactions. They're making micro transactions that are showing up in their parents' credit cards through some of the digital learning apps that they're using. So I think we can really even start as early elementary. In fact, Rhode Island we were the first state where our library system had actually partnered with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau in their Money as You Grow model. And the whole point of that is to have libraries, parents be able to access age-appropriate reading material and activities that are related to personal finance. So my thought process is early and often. The true testimony of that is just take a look at the number of students. We've really had that grassroots groundswell in terms of the advocacy work that's been done. They've showed up at the State House, whether it was in person or on distance on Zoom, testifying to how this is so important. And not only have they done the testimony, but we're also seeing them get heavily involved in terms of what the application should look like. So I can speak to the fact that we've had students as part of the Young Entrepreneurs of Providence, which is done in tandem with the Nelson Center at Brown University, and students who have been involved in the Hack for Global Good, where they've been focusing specifically on, it's not enough for us to say that students should be guaranteed access to a personal finance related class. We need to make certain that the quality of that class is the same regardless of your zip code in Rhode Island. And I think that's truly powerful, that they've gone just beyond, it's not enough to say we have it, it's what is the experience going to look like for us. And I love the fact that you brought up generation. I mean, we're really talking about generational wealth here and trying to start those conversations. I am always very optimistic that as this scales and as we start to get traction, we're going to start to see some of those positive distal outcomes. We're going to see people, being more intentional about taking advantage of employer-sponsored plans, thinking about, how do I start investing versus, a traditional savings account. So I am very optimistic. If our students are given access to not only the concepts, but are allowed to apply it, the whole intent here is to kind of develop a systematic approach to financial decision-making. So I am very optimistic about what the potential of this education may have just in terms of longitudinal outcomes. The treasurer's role has really been pivotal, and I think it really started with that fallen behind, that research paper that was written, where it was outlined, what have been sort of the negative implications of not investing in financial education. But more importantly, it went beyond that and really outlined the path to what do we need to be doing in terms of a comprehensive implementation plan to really move the dial on this. So his role was to really outline, it's not enough to say that we have the problems, like what is the solution path? Where are these opportunity sets and where do they lie? And I think the real power in his work has been being the bridge between policy and practice. And, his team had clearly outlined what needed to happen in terms of curriculum, what needed to happen in terms of professional development, and then equally important, how are we going to be measuring this, right? How are we going to know that all of our efforts are actually moving us in that positive direction? So I think he's been pivotal in a role that we don't traditionally see, which has been both on the policy side, but also on the practice side. Big piece that we don't see in other states, and I don't know that the treasurer gets enough credit for this, is that the state treasurers, through NAST and that organization has done great work. But what is unique that Treasurer Magaziner has done is he's kind of made certain that, it wasn't enough just to make certain that legislation was passed. We need to be focused on how this gets implemented and how it gets codified, right, in the state education regulations, right? That, I'm not just going to do the handoff and hope for the best, right? I'm going to outline what that implementation plan should be and put in some checkpoints. And I think that was essential.